Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Economic Preppers Show. I am your host, is Jeff. I'm here as the host, as always. We have a guest, as you can see. We'll introduce him first. Chris from Financial Preppers. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
Yeah. How was that little excursion down to Mexico?
It was great. We had just beautiful. The water was beautiful. The weather. It couldn't.
How
have
was
been
the
better.
sushi?
Yeah, I did have a small sushi problem. Well, a sushi that caused a problem that put me in the bed for about a day and a half. Ooh. So that part of the vacation wasn't very fun. But fortunately, it was towards the end, which I still managed to, have a great time in the first 3 days. So it was good. I recommend it. Anybody wants to go somewhere, it was like $2,500 for 5 days, and you eat like a king unless you eat the wrong thing, which don't eat sushi. You'll be good if you don't eat sushi. And it was just, it was amazing.
Yeah, be careful what you order. And if you're going to go a little exotic, go towards the end of the vacation. Just try to even it out and enjoy the first couple of days. But let's turn over to our normal guest here, Patrick. You've already engaged with Chris. How you doing, Patrick?
Man, I'm just happy to be here with Chris. Let's get this show rolling. Give it to Dylan. Go ahead, Dylan. Yeah. You got the ball.
Dylan, what's up, bro?
Happy to be here and excited to get this show on the go. And just remind everyone, like, comment, share, subscribe if you like the content, if you find it valuable, and leave a comment below as well for any questions you might have for any one of us or any of the topics we talk about. We'd love to see those questions and so we can answer them and incorporate them. So
good
comment,
job
share,
by that guy.
Subscribe.
I love the like, share, and subscribe right at the top of the show. I've been trying to do that on my own channel more often, but it's so tough to do. And nice shirt, by the way. I've got that same shirt. That's from Mikhail, correct?
Yep.
We'll give him a little plug there. Mikhail,
nice shirt.
Is it beer? Help me. Is the beer?
He's the beer ambassador. He's
no,
the beer ambassador.
Kilted something.
I will try to get something. I'll put it in the description of the link when we launch it. But the show will be launched on Friday as normal. But there'll be a special launch on Thursday or maybe early Friday whenever Chris gets it. But we're in a recording Thursday afternoon. Then Chris will get the first opportunity to share with his audience. So we're going to focus a lot towards what Chris's audience wants. But there's a lot of overlap, obviously, with Financial Prepper and Economic Prepper. So let me share my screen and we'll start talking about all the different things that are going on here. And I'm on the wrong slide there. There we go.
So if you guys don't know, I met Chris last year when we were at a symposium, and I've just had the opportunity to meet Chris even in Vancouver. We got to spend some time together, had a lot of fun, got some workout tips from him, from the guy who can tell me how to consume protein real fast. But Chris, I got a question for you because I was totally hearing you guys. And when you think of your audience, how many people do you think in your audience are curious about crypto? Would you say like a majority, half?
It's hard to say because, a lot of times when you mention something somebody just doesn't like, they feel like they want to comment, I hate crypto or it's nothing, it's fugazi. So I don't really know. I have a lot of precious metals people. I would say I have way less crypto people, but that's just according to the comments. I could do a poll, maybe. That would be a good idea. I'm going to do a poll on how many people in my audience does crypto and how many, does go, maybe there's some 50-50 people that do both or do half and half. Some people probably do, like I recommend, 10 to 50 for precious metals and, maybe 1% in crypto, depending on your conviction, maybe, up to 50 if you really like it. I'm not there yet, but I'm getting closer all the time as I understand blockchain and see how big it actually is. But I don't know. I'll have a better answer of that later after I do the poll.
I can tell you one thing. One of the things that all of our communities have in common, even Ninja Nation, right? We're prepping for one thing. We understand what's coming. We see the signs on the wall. But crypto commandment number one is actually as simple as the dollar is garbage. It has nothing to do with crypto. So kind of agrees with the precious metals market. That's kind of where I'm at these days. And the crypto commandment number two is choose the freedom mindset. So for us, the similarities are right there. The goal is to prepare, though, together as a community for what we know is coming.
Is there any difference in economic preppers and financial prepper? Do we have any differences? I don't think we do.
I don't really think so. I think that we just identified that the audiences that we had, there's so many people that so many people in crypto that are prepping or they're in silver and gold and precious metals that literally the nickname of Bitcoin is digital gold. So there's a lot of overlap, but there hasn't been a lot of conversation about that overlap. They're kind of like walls and silos. But Chris, as you pointed out, and we were talking in Vancouver, like up on stage, they were talking Bitcoin at a silver and golden symposium. That wouldn't have happened 5 years ago, but yet it was happening in front of our face. And we had Robert Kiyosaki and Economic Ninja all talking Bitcoin up there in the same breath of gold and silver. So the conversations are happening. The walls are coming down. People are getting prepared. They're getting exposed to all this. And we don't say that one versus the other. Like, we think that crypto has a place. So does silver and gold. So does cash. All those things have a place.
Just so everybody understands that what he's talking about when we were at the gold and, it's pretty much a gold mining, silver mining show. I mean, there was lithium and all kinds of stuff there, but there's a lot of gold bugs. If you're into mining, you're usually into gold. 3 out of the 5 people talked about Bitcoin while they're on stage at the main event.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. That's just when I put that together, I thought, man,
And 2 of them talked about private jets and a paper airplane.
Yeah, that was
one of them over and over.
One day, Patrick. One day, we'll all have our private jet.
No, man, I think I'm with Ninja on this. I'll take the paper airplane.
No, here's the idea. Prepper's jet, economic prepper's jet. And we all go in and we just use it as we need it. So there's about 6 or 8 of us, and we have a pilot that runs the jet, and we just split it up.
I already have the back end built on the blockchain, ready for us to do ownership with a crypto token. It's ready to go. Like, I just need someone to buy the jet. The problem is, right, it's the hangar fees. They're so expensive. It's not the jet even. The jet could be, pretty inexpensive. It's like the annual hangar fees that are ridiculous, and the staff to run it. So, yeah, chartering may be an option, but definitely starting our own thing sounds cool. The economic prepper's jet for Prepper Nation. I'll take it.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. That'd be the way to do it.
Well, let me jump right to our first story because we got so much to talk about. First off, one of the main stories was about, we talked about ESG, like economic, social, and whatever the G is. So some kind of growth, the culture, like the green version of investing. They want to take the 401k money for people all trying to invest and save their retirement and steer it towards the ESG green companies and forcing people, rather than making decisions on what's going to make you the most money and benefit for your retirement, towards what's the most impact for climate change. So, Patrick, I'll let you lead off with this one. What's your take of on investing in this style?
So, I mean, for me, it's just a digital version of the same junk that we have now. One of the things that I hate about the current system is we know that there's so much manipulation in the market. There's so much manipulation in the COMEX. There's so much manipulation on paper gold, paper silver. And they're trying to do the same thing with Bitcoin. It's the same thing like saying, hey, what do you think about taking your Bitcoin and putting it on Coinbase? I don't think it's very wise. I think the best way to hold your asset is hold it yourself. So if you're into gold, get some physical gold. If you really want silver, get some physical silver. If you want to get some and you don't know where to get some and you're listening right now, 318-564-5823. Call Stacy. She'll hook you guys up. It's pretty simple. I'm doing it myself, and I'll even leave some comments on the process. But you guys, we got to hold our assets. So I think it's a bunch of junk, and I think it's just another way to prop up the system that we already know is failing.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, what's your take on this all ESG nonsense?
Man, it's the new god for the green weenies. It's whoever worships the ESGism the most is that much closer to Klaus Schwab and the wrong side. They're absolutely, or that's the way it is. They're taking the food, outlawing fertilizer and emissions from tractors. And I mean, the stuff that's going on in the Netherlands is out of this world. They're the second biggest agricultural producer per capita. I mean, and they're stopping farming with it. And the Netherlands just happen to want to worship the ESG god more. So they're a little more, they're more towards the Hitler. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's really that way, I think. And I'm actually not really, but sort of participating and profiting from ESG right now, because we can no longer emit natural gas into the air to run the small valves and stuff. So I got a motor that I put on a skid, me and another business partner, and it produces air from the gas that's already there. So, you got to learn how to take advantage of the situation. But just know the ESG qualified motor that was the best one was twice the price of the one before.
Yeah. And capturing that extra stuff, that outgassing, that's kind of like right down in the Bitcoin miner, like the stranded energy. That's what they do. They convert that stranded energy to Bitcoin and turn the stranded energy into capital currency through Bitcoins. That's something that's out there. But Dylan, let's round out this story before we move on to the next one. Any comments on ESG and 401k investing? I know you're all in, right?
Yeah. I think the problem with something like ESG is when it's essentially planned idea. And so when you have any sort of central institution try to force the market go in a certain direction, it's one, impossible for them to have all of the relevant information to know that solution that they want is going to benefit the market in the way that would be ideal for the performance of the market. And then because of that, there are a ton of unintended consequences that can arise from requiring individuals and companies to include a certain investment type or to diversify their capital expenditures into certain fields. You don't know what that's going to do. And the chances of a centrally planned entity getting that right in a complex system like the markets that we operate in is extremely, extremely small. And the likelihood of it creating scenarios or incentives that can negatively impact the performance of the market or lead to outcomes that aren't necessarily efficient is pretty high. And so when I see these stories, I just think it's unfortunate that so many people and so many entities are buying into it. But I guess the reality is so many people and entities are so dependent on whatever the central institution says, kind of like you're saying, Chris, just they're worshiping it. And there is money to be made in that system by, following the leader there. But what kind of money are you making and what type of resilience are you setting yourself up in the market up for if you optimize for these policies and things like ESG over time? Because I think these type of things they're around now, but eventually they'll fail. And if you're only optimized for this type of thing, you're going to fail too. And so you're not making yourself resilient over the long term. So you're making some sacrifices there.
Yeah, there's so much going on there. There's so much distraction. There's so many different ways they're trying to steer you. That leads to our second story, which won't go away. It's the toxic Ohio train derailment in East Palestine, which we talked about how that was shown on Netflix and foreshadowed with their predictive programming, that movie White Noise. But the fire that they were kind of glossing over that, what the Buttigieg fiasco and Trump going there, but the fire that they created to try and burn things off actually created more toxins that won't go away. These biotoxins that are just going to be persistent. And the other story that here's a story, and I'll try to put all these links in the description. There's a lot of links, but this is from The Guardian and Stephen Lester. There's lots of dioxins that are being released because of the fire. So, and the overturned train was right over the causeway or easeway to the runoff right into the river. So there's lots of stuff that's happening that's going to affect Ohio, Pennsylvania, and areas to come. And plus, there's interesting precious minerals that are in East Palestine, which are also worth being talked about. So, Chris, I know you covered this on your channel a lot. Why don't you give us a rundown of what your take is on East Palestine right now?
I didn't a lot. I did some because it was news. There's some people just saddling it up and riding it every day, and I get tired of that. What I don't understand is who thought it was a good idea to burn it off. I mean, that's I don't get that. If it was pumped in there with something, it can be pumped out of the ditch with something else, because it looked like it was pretty contained. They could have dug some sump holes, sucked the chemical out, and then maybe burnt the rest off. I could maybe understand that. But it's like they didn't even try that. There's so much that I don't think we get. Like it was how the parts per million that was accepted was changed 2 weeks before the derailment.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
It was 100 parts per million and 1,000x'd.
Yeah.
Wow. 2 weeks before. I mean, there's a lot of things. It's almost too, it's like an AJ story,
But did you guys hear today they had a metal shop that exploded today?
No.
Jeff, did you see that link I sent you?
I did not see that one. Where was that
There's
today?
an explosion today at a metal factory in Ohio, and it was, oh man, I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was like a huge explosion in a metal factory in Ohio. I know
Well, I
it's
think
literally just happened today.
there's so much to investigate. That I've heard that there's a cobalt deposit in East Palestine, and cobalt, for those you don't know, that is one of the key rare earth elements that go in electric vehicles that don't go in common cars. So they need lithium and cobalt. And as we get more nationalized or nationalized, we focus on our nation. We're not going to get sort of these elements from China or Pakistan or wherever they dig these cobalt and lithium up. It's going to be hard to get. So what if they're contaminating the land so the government can grab it and have the cobalt much cheaper? That's another thing to consider about. And again, going back to the story, it's crazy. Like, look at this. Like this TCDD, which is what one of the dioxins that they're talking about, is part of Agent Orange. I mean, that's literally how you make Agent Orange. You burn this vinyl chloride and the other chemicals that were there, and the output of it is TCDD, which is part of Agent Orange. It's just insane what's going on. Dylan, take us home on this topic. I know you got a good take on this.
Yeah, I think, well, my take is it's wild and it's crazy to see this play out, and it's terrible as well to see something of this scale and negative impact on our soil. I do think that I'm not a chemical engineer, so I don't know all the breakdowns of this or what the result would have been had they not burned it off versus burning it off. And so I don't know how that decision was made. I think that's an important question for all of us to ask. It's important to look into these things further and understand why they might have made that decision. And I do think it's fun to dabble in some of the conspiracy routes as well. But like you mentioned real quick, Jeff, is, hey, if there's a cobalt mine there and they need cobalt for electric vehicles happen to be one of those things that are being incentivized under ESG, under the centrally planned market. And so this type of thing where you create a disaster to drive people from that area so you can access the resources underneath wouldn't normally occur in a normal market with market forces deciding that aren't manipulated. But in a manipulated market, this type of stuff can happen because
they want us in 15-minute cities. No thanks. Not doing it.
So I think it's something to look out for, and always just ask the other questions, right? Ask a few more questions. 5 whys is a good kind of tool. Why they do it this way. Okay, why was that a good idea? Why was this not done? And really look into it. And then if it confirms the conspiracy, right, then you can have more belief or weight in that if you decide.
I agree, Dylan. I got to talk to that because it's so easy to speculate. It's just so, and a lot of prepper channels do it. Try to really, it seems like they're just really drumming it up. And then, if they're doing it, they're trying to get clicks. So the people that are actually giving us the information are trying to get clicks as well. A lot of these news stories are kind of drummed up from the beginning. And, all we can do is read the news because we're not there and we don't really know. So the 5 whys is good, man. I got to remember that.
Yeah, the 5 whys, the journalistic who, what, where, when. Another one I like to do is when I read a headline, I take all the adjectives out. Like if they're trying to say, surreptitiously launch this or this, just get to the fact words. Like
China launched missile.
Yeah, China surreptitiously launched dangerous missile. Well, there's 2 words in there that are like leading you down a path. So speaking of another story to lead down the path as we keep going down all the different things we have to talk about, this is another one. Now we have a new Congress. We see that the Senate just voted unanimously to declass, and that's a hot topic word, declass all the CV-19 lab leak intelligence. So this is going to be an interesting one. So it's not surprising that so many news stories are out there to flood the market of news as they launch this. And you got to read, it's so hard to stay on top of the news. Like, we try the best we can. We're very busy guys, and we can't even stay on top of it. We have to talk amongst ourselves in groups like this to say, hey, did you see this? Did you hear about that? Because there's so much going on. I'm going to start with Dylan on this one. Dylan, what's your take on declassifying the CV-19 news and where that could possibly lead?
Man, this is a big question. I mean, there's probably a reason, right? They've probably cleaned up what they need to clean up. And it's probably another manipulation, or maybe it's the truth. Maybe it's the truth, and they disguise it by putting other manipulations out so you don't believe it. All I know is that there are people calling the lab leak hypothesis for years, and those people were silenced. Right, the damage has been done to a lot of people, to a lot of individuals, and you can't take that back. And to see it come out now, a lot of those people are vindicated in their stance and the stance they've had. But still, that think about all the credibility a lot of these people lost, or the platforms that they lost along the way. Just hoping that the truth, at the end, the truth is always going to come to the forefront. So it is good to see that, but I just have to wonder why. What happened to make them release that?
It's interesting to see that comes out now. Speaking of platforms and more news coming out, Patrick, you're probably our number one guy in this group for Twitter. What are you seeing as far as the changes in Twitter, the amount of news that's coming out there, how much Twitter is now a news source again? What are you seeing as far as not just the CV19, but overall climate of disseminating information and a dialogue happening on Twitter?
So what we're seeing out there is a lot of independent people who are out there just trying to get the truth out there. So you're seeing a lot of Twitter spaces developing where they're bringing in credible sources on the ground from inside the company. They have a method to authenticate that the person who's talking is genuine and from that position and actually has the information. So we've got quick access to real information, especially now that Elon has stepped in. And, man, I got some mixed feelings about Elon, but the reality is we're able to communicate on there a lot more freely than we were last year. So that's also a benefit. Twitter is a huge space for us. And I'm really, just proud of my Twitter followers and the people who, I like to follow, and just for the family out there on Twitter, because there's a lot of awesome people with great ideas on Twitter.
Yeah, definitely follow us on social media and follow Chris as well. Chris, I know you've been putting more stuff out there on social media and getting more active. You and Stacy are really getting a lot of traction with Ninja Nation. What's your take on the dialogue, the CV19 stuff, all the information, how things are changing in the last month or so, just sharing information?
Well, talk to the Twitter thing. Does it seem like that could be a Trojan horse to anybody else? Because you get on Twitter now and it's anything goes, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it seems like, it could be that they're going to know where people stand on Twitter. They're going to know exactly, where they stand and how to shut them down. Now, I know that's really kind of doomy and gloomy when it comes to freedom of speech, but I can tell you from being on the YT for so long, it's real, buddy. And I made a video about the woohoo bat flu when it first came out. That was not me speculating. It was nothing. It was just a virologist saying exactly what happened. Everything he said is what went down. It got taken down in 8 minutes and they gave me a strike on my channel. It was like censorship immediately. And now you've got Twitter on the other hand saying, hey, it's fair game over here. I don't know. I'm not sure what to think. It's hard for me to do Twitter for some reason because I've stayed away from it for so long. I need to get over there and do more, but I'm gonna start.
Yeah, I'm trying to get back in there too. I've been banned a few times. I've had my own issues with Twitter, and Patrick keeps trying to encourage me to get back there. I'm probably on my 4th or 5th account, and Joanna manages my the official Litecoin leader account under J Pinnacle too. But we'll share all that stuff as well. But yeah, it is the wild, wild west. But that's you can make the argument that's the way it should be. I mean, if you're going to have the ability for free speech for anything, you should, within reason. I mean, you can't say I want to kill this person or whatever, but for the most part, you should be allowed to say whatever you want, and that's part of how you engage the dialogue. The problem is that people, as Chris, you said earlier, critical thinkers are gone. You can't have a debate with anybody. You can't have a healthy discussion about a topic. They get all defensive on things and like, no, you're an idiot. You can't do that. It's like they get name calling or they get defensive or they don't know how to have a discourse and just like, okay, that's an interesting viewpoint. Why do you think that way? And have a dialogue back and forth and say, tell me why you think that way is. And then either you strengthen your own argument or you may even convince someone else to think a different way, which is the way it's supposed to be. But most people don't know.
Maybe you learned something. Maybe you're wrong. See, I always remember that. You could be wrong about something.
Absolutely.
I could possibly be wrong about gold and silver being money. I could absolutely be wrong.
No, I don't think so, man, because that's how I learned about gold and silver.
But it is possible, correct? All things are possible. It could
Well,
be
yeah.
outlawed. They could say, if we're going to cut your head off, if you have any of it, people would turn in, the price would go down. It would be really bad. I don't think that's going to happen. Just so you know about being free speech, I think everybody should be carrying a weapon on their side like the Old West. I'm serious. I think we should all be armed. Everything should be legal. Wearing a seatbelt and a helmet is garbage. That should never be a law. That's your own body. You should be able to do whatever you want to with it, right?
Yes.
I mean, it makes no sense. And those are little freedoms that get taken away. And, freedom of speech is like the number one. That's the number one.
Yeah, freedom to
Number one,
pew pew is like
attack.
really important in my life.
Well, before we move to the next topic, I'm just going to close this out and just say, like, there used to be a statement that's now way politicized that shouldn't be. We used to say, prove me wrong. And that used to be like open discussion. Hey, this is what I think. Prove me wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'm more than happy to admit that I'm wrong. But
Totally.
if I'm not wrong, then this is a good launching point for a discussion. But now people like take offense at statements like that, and they shouldn't. People are like, you either know what you're talking about or you don't. But part of it is engaging in a dialogue and not being in an echo chamber like most people have existed in social media. But let me turn the page here to one more story about as we head into the economics portion of the discussion here, which is right in our home state now. Well, my new home state, and certainly for Patrick, Oregon. Oregon is proposing a bill that will give $1,000 a month to homeless low-income people. Patrick, please explain this insanity.
So Oregon, they do what they want, and it doesn't need to make sense. So what we do is we like to give money away, and they take money from FTX, and to shut everyone up and keep them not accountable, they give them money left and right. They're just trying to, what is homeless? I mean, everyone these days, it's just another checkbox to get more federal aid or more state aid and keep us lazy. The handouts is what they're doing, more handouts. They're trying to get us conditioned to accepting handouts. And what do handouts lead to? Handcuffs. That's what they lead to. So you don't want to get used to this because this is what they're going to do to bring down CBDCs, more handouts. It's just a new fad and it's just starting.
What's going on here?
Who's that?
Your wife calling?
Not me.
Is it?
Who's got the emergency alert?
Yes, that was me. Oh, I do have one. Tornado warning in this area.
Oh,
shelter
that's right. You're in
now.
Louisiana, aren't you, Chris?
Bro,
That's-
do you got to go? That sounds
get down
serious.
on the lowest floor of the sturdy building. Okay.
Bro, are you serious?
I'm dead serious. Emergency alert. So
Well, if you need to
now, it's
go, let
always
us know.
something.
Dude,
Hey,
I
the
think
show
you
goes
should.
on. Let's go. If it starts getting real, I'll let you know.
If Stacy runs in there, we'll know.
This is not happening while we record, guys. I'm serious. I thought it was in my room. Everyone's checking. You really got a tornado coming around you?
It's a warning. It's
Yeah.
not a watch. It's an emergency warning.
The show must
Louisiana's
go
got some
on.
weather. Yeah. Louisiana's
Yeah.
got some severe weather today.
Are we? All right.
But
Well,
Chris,
That's
talk
okay
about
because you're prepared for this, right?
yeah, Chris. Are there programs going on in Louisiana where like the state of the local government are giving out money, like they're taking the taxpayers' money and giving it to people randomly? Is that happening going on? In
okay.
Louisiana?
No, okay. Well, yeah. Yes, it happens every day here. You go to Sam's Club right now. There's people buying more expensive food than me on food stamps on the Louisiana purchase card. Well, we can talk about that one, or we can talk about the one that's going on in Oregon. $1,000 a month for the homeless. That was right.
Yeah.
So they were doing this in Germany too. They did this in Rome. They actually lessened people's work weeks. They tried to pay them to stay home. Now they're trying to give to the homeless. This is all part of the fall, I believe, because this does not work. If money goes from somewhere out, it's got to come from somewhere, and if you think you can create it out of nothing, that's when you accept that, this method of work, you'll be as right as the other 600 currencies that we've touched on the earth. They will be zero because that's the way everybody thinks. They think they can devalue the currency, give it away, make everybody happy, and finally it collapses. This is just part of it. Is what I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Dylan, what's your take on all these giveaways from the government, either in Oregon, Louisiana, or even in your home state of Colorado?
Yeah, it's a tough situation. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit later, but something like AI and just the ever increasing technology that we have, and what we're seeing is that to the victor goes the spoils in this as technology ramps up, and especially online, the digital world. Where in the physical world you're kind of limited if you have a good product or service or business by the scale, right? The physical reality of it. But online, like everyone can just go to the same source. I mean, look at like when you look at the big five tech companies or like Amazon, like people just all go to the same source. So the one that's the best, that is just like slightly better than the other ones, they win out, right? They win at scale. And that's happening before our eyes. And what that's doing as technology increases, as we get more sophisticated with all the data analytics and all the stuff like Chat GPT coming out, it's replacing human workers, right? It's taking jobs, and so that's going to create that's going to create a legitimate issue. And so how do you deal with that? And now if you're just printing money out of thin air, right? You're taking from people to give them something, right? Was it, stealing from Peter to pay Paul? Is that the saying? Right? So
Yeah.
you're extracting value to give someone, but you're really giving them back less than what you actually extracted from them, and that's a real problem. Um, and that's a tough problem to come up with a solution to. And so I don't know, I'm not necessarily a fan on the surface of giveaways or programs like this, but it's definitely something I would look into more. And hopefully it's not disastrous.
Well,
Well,
go ahead, Chris.
yeah, well, no, it will be disastrous. I won't go into that.
Well, we've got a lot to cover. There's a couple
Yeah.
more stories. I'm going to skip over them for now and sake of time. We could talk about lots of news for a long time, but we want to get into the economics, the preparing, the crypto, all that other good stuff. Let's lead off with this story here. This is a graph from the Federal Reserve that just shows the savings rate of people, and it says 4.7%, but you could see that the savings for people back in 2020 when things started, the stimulus and all that, savings went over 30%. Now we're down below 5% savings, similar to numbers right before the global financial crisis in 2008. And if you look for more perspective on it, the personal savings rate is between 3 and 5%. So they say that people are not ready for, like, the average family is not ready for a $500 expense that's unexpected. There's no savings. Everybody's getting worried about possible expenses, prices going up, inflation, cost of things, and holding back their currency. Patrick, what's your take on the fact that we don't have savings anymore?
Well, I mean, it's just the reality of where a lot of Americans are at right now. They're having an issue with getting even their basic necessities paid for as costs of inflations continue to rise. So I think for me, it's very simple. You just got to think about where the average consumer is like right now. And it really is a hard place for them to be, right? Their money is going less at the grocery store. It's becoming the de-dollarization all over is happening globally. So what we're seeing is it's just going further in a little bit of places that they want you to see, right? And they try to mix it in the CPI by letting you know that inflation's not as bad as it is if you don't include things like rent or your mortgage or gasoline. But in reality, like, Americans are struggling. And as they start taking away these handouts, right, it's going to lead to handcuffs because now they've got control. They have conditioned you to be ready for them supporting you for everything that you need. And they want the government to be the answer. So to me, it is a sad reality of that's where we're at. And there is only one way to get out of it. And in my opinion, it's just one way, really. It's hard work. Right? You have to work hard to get out of a situation that you're in. And that might be by gardening at home, saving some costs, maybe finding a way to contribute and make some money on the side. You heard Dan from iAllegedly. He brought up a couple of great ideas. You can go out to make, some side hustle money. Ninja talks about it. You can look at him on his courses. He talks about it there. So many opportunities. But the reality is it is affecting our communities and we got to do something about it. So I think that's why we're all here, though. That's why we're on Ninja Nation. We talk about this stuff. We talk with each other. We're ready to be here for each other. We want to help each other, and we want to learn and grow together. So that's the solution here is, like, again, you guys hear me every show. I'll look at you in the eye and I'll say, if you're listening today and you choose to do nothing different, then there's no reason for you to be watching us because we add no value to your life. You need to actually make a change after you hear this stuff and you start putting pieces together. It's your job to do your own research, to take it to the next step, but it'll also be like more global thinking, right? What are we going to do for our neighbors and our community when stuff hits the fan? How are we ready to support our neighbors? Are we ready to support? I mean, or are you really going to let the neighbor kids down the block go without food and you're going to eat like kings?
Yeah, and it's not just global, but it's local too. But let's turn over to our financial prepper here and Chris and see what his take is on savings. How are you telling your community, which is growing by leaps and bounds? Congratulations on that. But we need to grow even more. How are you telling them to preserve their wealth? Are they holding cash? Are they holding? We'll get to crypto in a minute, but cash, silver, crypto. What's your take on the savings rate, and what's the best way to be prepared financially?
Well, we're in a time where, savings are going down because people are having to spend more, right? Discretionary spending is being cut out. I had a story last night about a lady that went to trade her car in, and the car people that she traded it into didn't pay the note. So the bank came after her somehow. Does that mean the car company's insolvent? I don't know. The repos are up as bad as they were in the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis in 2008, 2009 is when it's as bad as it was then. People are hurting for money. I mean, that's why it is so important to find a side hustle, find a revenue stream. If you think that you're going to buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin and then just sit and just do nothing else, you're absolutely wrong. The wealthy have things that pay them to own them, and then they turn that into silver, gold, Bitcoin, assets that kind of hold wealth. But if you don't really have any wealth, you probably need to be thinking about saving food, getting out of debt. That's the number one thing everybody needs to do right now is get out of debt. If you're not part of the problem, you'll be able to be part of the how we fix this thing. The people that are going to build this thing back. If you're broke, you can help nobody. Money actually helps people. Yeah. Money's not everything. I get it. The love of money, is the root of all evil, and that's the truth. But good luck helping somebody without it. That's why it's important to take those steps now so you can prosper later. And getting out of debt's the first thing. I say that in a lot of my videos because I think that's the most important. And I know a lot of my subscribers are well off. They're diversified. They have 10 to 50% in precious metals, to hedge against inflation or anything that might happen. The lights go out, who knows? Yeah. This we've never been so close to the Third World War, in my opinion. Since I've been on the earth, this is the closest we've ever been. And it doesn't look like it's going to get rosy tomorrow. So that's a really good reason. See, these assets that we talk about do really good in this environment. In a volatile environment where uncertainty is present, that's when our assets perform. And that is exactly what's been going on since I started making videos about the crash, the stock market crash, that is, when Jeff Bezos came out, Elon Musk, they said, hey, we're selling our stock. I made a huge video about it. It's like 7 huge companies sold a ton of their stock. And everybody's like, oh, but they're just, they're selling out for this. I said, no, they're selling early. These people that own large portions of companies have to sell early. And that was a bellwether. And I encourage people to maybe I don't want to ever tell anybody what to do, because as soon as I do, I'll be wrong. But I tried to encourage people to move over into precious metals and Bitcoin. If you're in that camp and you understand it, and that's what this show's about. And I think you guys are going to do a really good job with that. But that was a prime opportunity, and now these assets have actually held their value. Bitcoin's on its way back. That's why I say 1%, because I think we've got a crazy downturn coming for Bitcoin. But I think it will be one of those assets that has the biggest asymmetric move, even more than gold. But I hope that covered the savings and why we save it.
That's a great take. And let me transition over to Dylan here to close out the topic. Yeah. And to touch on what you said, Chris, like money is the root of all evil, but it does pave the road and make it a little easier towards happiness and getting there. So yeah, you don't want it to be your entire life, but it does make things easier. So Dylan, I know you have a community as well that you're helping get into the crypto world, which we're going to talk about next, but how are you recommending people to weather the storm through cash savings, precious metals, silver and gold? I know you're relatively new to that, but obviously it's an emerging category and Patrick's getting big into it. But precious metals, crypto, cash, What's your general recipe? And I know this is not financial advice,
Yeah.
but what's your general take on those three categories?
Yeah. So if you're going to save, like Chris mentioned before, you need to create a revenue stream. And, once you do that, like once you have the revenue to pay for your daily expenses and everything, and then everything else you earn is excess. And if you're talking about saving, you got to start putting it in different vehicles, in different asset classes that, that aren't correlated to where you're getting your money from, right? So if you're making money and then you're saving in the dollar, well, if anything happens to the dollar, all that money's gone, right? We see examples like this in places like Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, any place that Turkey that's had a currency collapse. People work their whole life, had a successful business, right? That's one asset there, right? Say they're a doctor, right? And they're making money from that, and then they save by reinvesting in their business, creating more cash flow. But that cash flow fails, right? If the value of that cash goes down, it'll never keep up with super high inflation. So buying something like gold or silver or Bitcoin or real estate, having something like that to protect against that potential loss of value or collapse is key. And so when I tell people about that, I said that's something you need to consider, right? You need to be really clear what your goals are, what your situation is, what the assets are that you're investing in, what the purpose is of that as well. And when I talk to people about Bitcoin, like Chris mentioned, 1%, I think that's a great starting point, right? You're off zero. You have 1% is not going to kill anyone when it comes to having an allocation of that. Worst case, it goes to zero. Okay, you still have 99% left. But best case, right? And this would be in the case of a disaster, most of the other assets and things you own might all be correlated, might be a part of a system that might collapse. And if that happens, right, especially if you're holding the rest in cash or bonds or things like that, if that all collapses, right, you're screwed. So, but if you had that 1% in Bitcoin and that 100x's in value, you're just as well off, if not better off than you were before. So that's something to think about. And then, of course, as you learn more about it, and you can gain more conviction for or against whatever asset you're looking into. So whether it's Bitcoin, gold, silver, real estate, whatever it is, that'd be kind of where I'd say start and start thinking about how you're going to go about saving.
Let me talk about the 1% just for a second. I'll be quick, I promise. The 1% thing. Did anybody ever buy all their gold at one time? Or, no, most people buy just a little bit, and then they learn how to put it on their phone and get it on a whole hard wallet. And I would even recommend taking the 1% off, put it back on the hard, take it off, kind of play with it and get familiar with using it, how it works. Maybe even buy a little something with it. You need to learn and figure out how it works. If you're not really into that and you just want to hold your wealth, I know, Patrick, you can give them that. What do you call it?
These guys?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The ballet wallets. Yeah. So for us, it's real simple. So just
there,
nice.
it's just cold, right?
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
real simple. They're under $50. And so what it does is it allows you to store any crypto you want. And the beauty of the ballet wallet is the only way that you can actually spend the coins that you accumulate on this card is if you scratch off this little phrase here, the passphrase, and you have to peel off the QR code here and scan the private key. So I had a client call me the other day and said, man, I think my phone got hacked. I just want to make sure that like my crypto's safe. And I asked him one question. I said, have you ever scratched off the private key? He said, no. I said, then there's no way even you could have spent it. So you're safe. It's just that simple.
But is that, the 1%, is that how you think about it, Dylan?
That's in part. I completely agree that when you're learning, like you need to learn about this. Like if I was talking to, let's say I was talking to someone who had, $1,000 in their bank account, and I was talking to someone who had $1 million or $1 billion in their bank account, and they want to learn about Bitcoin. And they're like, well, how much should I buy? What should I do? I would tell each one basically the same thing. You need to understand it. You need to understand what a wallet is, what a private key is, what Bitcoin is, what's the importance of 21 million coins, what the halving schedule is, what does that indicate? All these things. You need to know how to send, buy it on different platforms. You need to know how to send it and receive it. You need to know how to protect it and store it. And that only takes, maybe a couple $100 max just to do that. Buy all the right wallets. I mean, our wallet was it like $45 there? Buy one of those, and then buy $10-$20 worth of Bitcoin and send it around, play around with it, get comfortable with it before you even think about putting any material amount of your wealth in there. Because if you put a bunch of money in it, and Patrick's heard these horror stories, I've heard these horror stories. People put their money in because a friend tells them, or they're their nephew tells them or whatnot, and they do it. And now they have a bunch of money in something they don't understand, they don't know how to use, they don't know how to access, and too many people have lost substantial amount, life-changing money because they didn't know what to do. And so I think the most important thing is understand it. And once you understand it, then you can up your allocation, right? Once you're confident and comfortable and you can make a convicted decision, then you can up that allocation from 1% to 3%. Maybe it's 5% right now. And then, maybe in the future it becomes 10 to 20 or more, I know.
But what if
And
they lose their 1%?
if they lose, they'll be
It's
fine.
just 1%.
I mean, so
Yeah.
the question you're
Yeah.
asking here, right? And we got to make a big differentiation. When we start talking crypto, I want to back up a sec and say Bitcoin is very different than every other coin out there. It's like trying to tell people that Bitcoin is gold. Well, Bitcoin's not really gold either. Gold is something very different. It's got different properties. Bitcoin is also one of its own kind, but everything else is not Bitcoin. There's nothing else like Bitcoin. So for me, the way I like to do it, I'm a Bitcoin maximalist. See the sign? I love Bitcoin. I used to mine Bitcoin. I used to support the Bitcoin network. And for me, the whole idea about this is when we're storing our wealth, right? We're not playing the get rich quick scheme. And that's what a lot of people want to do. And that's what they're trying to sell you when you're watching sports, and the Matt Damons that are out there sponsoring FTX. And this is what they're trying to do. They're trying to make it sexy and trying to make it seem like everyone's going to win money and Shiba. This is the problem, right? The problem is the root of its core is it's the love of money is the root of all evil. And they prey on that. And they try to get you to get into these other tokens. But the reality is if you stick with Bitcoin and dollar cost averaging Bitcoin over time, I can show you analytically that over a 4-year period, Bitcoin has never lost over any asset in time in history, has outperformed Bitcoin. So the reality is having Bitcoin as part of your portfolio is probably a wise call for everybody to have. And I'll say that unequivocally, just like I would say unequivocally, if you don't own silver and you don't own gold and you don't understand the need for the precious metals that we use in our everyday life, you're also missing the opportunity, right? So there are things that I would say you got to remember, though, that I'm not advocating that anything other than Bitcoin right now is something that a beginner should get into. What you're learning is how to store and preserve your wealth. And the way to do that's not on an exchange and not on Coinbase. Hold your own private keys, just like you'd hold the silver that you get from Miles and Franklin.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and we spend a lot of time going over that, Chris, and we're more than happy to come out to your audience and explain all this stuff. But we want everybody to understand that, I remember back 5-6 years ago when Anthony Pompliano, commonly known as Pomp, used to be on CNBC, and he'd say, like, put 1% in. You that basic, just 1% in. And that was before Bitcoin was on CNBC all over every day. And then as it started performing and outperforming everything else in the category, and they started to learn more about the asset class, that percentage kept going from 1 to 5 to 10 and so on. It got more and more mainstream. But the bottom line is once you learn what this asset is about, and you learn that it's the only asset that we know exactly how much there's ever going to be of it. You can find more gold, you can find more silver, oil, gas, all these other commodities, you can find more. And that's where we get the inflation rates that 2% everybody targets comes from gold and silver and the rate it's normally been found. You can't do that. You can't dig a hole in the earth and find more Bitcoin. We know how much the computers are going to generate over time. So you get something like this, you learn how to store it safely. You get this, you buy Bitcoin, you put it on this, throw it in your safe, and you're done. Now you own Bitcoin and it's protected. And it's as simple as that. Now you're in the category. It's like owning the top line product in the entire asset category, like owning Kleenex versus just owning all tissues, or Xerox instead of a copier. Bitcoin is the top asset in the entire class of crypto. And now you have exposure to something that's grown at something twice. It's grown, I think it's twice the rate of the internet in its first 10 years. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of conversations we can have about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and the differences between Bitcoin and blockchain, because they're not the same. Bitcoin is the first killer app on blockchain, but blockchain is the tech. Blockchain is like writing stuff down on a ledger that's written all over the globe so you can't change it. So now it's like proof. So you can use that for your digital ID, your records of any kind for real estate transactions, your personal medical records, your resume, all that stuff can be put on a blockchain. but it's not just for currency. The currency application, the killer app using the blockchain, is Bitcoin. So we try to make it as simple as for people to understand and get exposure to it with minimal risk, minimal like they don't need to know a ton. Like, you know where to get Bitcoin. In fact, you could buy a wallet from us and we can send you Bitcoin and for a nominal premium, and then you throw it in your safe and you're done. You've got Bitcoin. So it's simple as that, because you got to know who to trust in these areas. And because there's a lot of people that are just pumping and dumping these other like 18,000 coins that are out there. That's not what we're about. We're trying to help you. How do you preserve your wealth and how do you store it properly? That's why we recommend a digital form of gold. And that's often what we share. Let me share this one slide. I won't go into this eye chart, but this is typical what we do when we talk at our venues. We have a chart here that compares Bitcoin to gold to fiat currency and all the different properties of money and how Bitcoin beats everything except in gold in almost every category except for history and durability, because the internet could go down. But every category has its flaws. You can move Bitcoin much easier and safer and quicker than you can for gold, for example. So these are the kind of conversations that we have. And I understand the arguments that a lot of precious metals people have, that it's not tangible, but you can have this in your safe and you got Bitcoin on it. And then you can look it up and see how much you have. So there's arguments and counter arguments, but there's no one right answer to preserving your wealth. So the best way, just like everybody talks about, diversify across a couple of different asset categories and make sure they're the ones you want to hold, because you could be holding them for a while until one pops and you sell that for a profit and buy some of the other ones.
And it's all about risk tolerance too. Like, I have a much higher risk tolerance for crypto than most people do, because I think I have a better handle on it based on my history. I've been doing it for so long that for me, cashing out Bitcoin at 60,000 was kind of a no-brainer. And you're right. It's like, what do you get into when you want to cash out? Do I want to hold dollars? No, but I'm not stupid either. I know there's going to be another time for me to enter into crypto. It might have gone up to 70 or 80 and I might have missed the top, and that's okay. But the reality is I got out and started getting into silver, where I met Chris and Economic Ninja and Jack at the Silver Symposium. It was just a wonderful time.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the category, and it's good to get exposure and learn about them. But I understand that there's hesitancy because it's new. It's a new technology. You need to know who to trust and how to understand it. But I've seen many videos that I've seen them made all over YouTube, like take $1,000 and put 100 in Bitcoin, 50 in Ethereum, and then 8 in these other random coins. I tell people, I made the same kind of video. I just said, take Bitcoin, take your $1,000, slice it into 4 or 5 even numbers, like $200, $250, and dollar cost average into Bitcoin for 4 and 5 months. And that's your recipe while you learn. And at the end of that 4 or 5 months, you'll have an appetite to like, okay, how does this compare to Bitcoin? How does Ethereum compare to Bitcoin? What's the difference? How is Litecoin very similar to Bitcoin, but a little bit different? Those are the kind of things you learn over time, but you're not going to learn things overnight. So dip your toe in, get a little bit of Bitcoin, get some exposure, understand the benefits of it and also some of the detractions of it. And then you will eventually evolve, because we all did. I didn't wake up and knowing Bitcoin and blockchain. None of us knew this 15 years ago because it didn't exist.
I mean, in honor of Stacy, I'm going to even say XRP, like, because Stacy seems to be cool with that too. So I'm going to say, like, let's add XRP just for our ma'am Stacy and be like, hey, we added that too.
Here's what
as you can tell, Chris, we could talk about this forever. We're more than happy to share with your community whenever you want.
That's what I want to do. I want to have you guys on, and we're going to do a crypto is crap, or is crypto crap, or you got scammed by Bitcoin. Sorry. We're going to get people in there, because I'm going to ask you all the hard questions. Like, what happens when the lights go off? EMP. Okay. Is it gone forever? All right.
No,
we'll cover that.
Nope.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. If there's one computer running, it'll eventually generate
I'll tell you what, if that's what you want to do, then I'm going to make it even more fun. I'm going to sweeten it for your listeners here. So I've got silver that I'm going to send out to your audience. So here's what we're going to do. So Chris, you're going to get to pick 10 people from your subscribers from this episode that you launch. You get their addresses and I'll send them silver. It's just that simple. You pick out 10 people. The only requirement is they have to tag and follow your channel and ours. If you're just one of our economic preppers and you think you're going to win, guys, you're not, because if you're not following Chris, I'm not going to give it to you. It's just that simple. You got to be following both of us, and Chris is going to be picking the winners on his show. That's simple.
That's an interesting idea. I know my subscribers like silver, and I think I won't have any trouble getting rid of 10 of them. So yeah, that'll be good. We'll do a crypto's crap. Here's 10 coins of silver. Somebody's getting it video.
Guys,
Deal.
we have so much to talk about. I can't believe we're already almost at an hour. I'm going to start wrapping this up, and I'm going to add a little bit of real history, a little woo. But Chris, I'm going to give you an opportunity to just talk about yourself before I do that. And if there's any other follow-up questions you wanted to, the floor is yours while I share everybody a view of your channel and how people can follow you over at Financial Preppers.
Yeah, sure. I guess if I wanted to share something, I'd like to, I know you guys heard my personal story about the bank last night.
Yeah, I did.
I've been mulling on that all day, and this is kind of case in point of everything we talk about, and we're being prepared. And and I don't want to take the lady's job. Let me catch everybody up. So we got a call from the bank. We moved some funds, went from one brokerage to another. It went through this bank, and everything was fine. All of a sudden, I get a call. Stacy gets a call. It says, "Hey, what are you doing moving these funds?" And they said, she said, "Why? Why do you need to know?" She said, "Well, it's just from, I just want to know." I was like, "Was this a personal question?" She's like, "Yeah. Why did you move this? What are y'all doing that for? Is it something I need to be investing in?" So this lady was going back through my books at the bank. She shouldn't have been looking at.
Well, it wasn't even the same account, right? It was a checking account that wasn't even the same account. So she was looking at different accounts to see where your funding for that account was coming from.
Some nutty stuff. So the moral to the story is the last part of the story was this is the same lady that did not give me a loan for my first rent house. After I did all my due diligence, the credit score, the money down, knew what to do, went in there. Okay, I'm ready. Turn me around with 800 credit score, twice the money for a down payment, had a paid off mortgage. I mean, we were more than well off to do that. But what it is that's somebody crapping on my dreams. Don't let anybody do that to you. For sure, a bank. You interview them, and it doesn't matter. Just don't. And we still would have never owned rental properties if I would have said no. Let's go back. Let's try again. The next bank, a year and a half later, we had 6 houses. I mean, but she was petty enough to try to stop somebody that was moving forward. And I want to encourage everybody to not stop, because if I would have stopped, I wouldn't have never done the rental properties. I would have never done a lot of things, because that failure, failure really hurts a lot of people. And I just want to encourage people to learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we got limited amount of time. We can
talk about a lot.
I do say that a lot, but the show just flies by. We're almost at an hour already. So, Patrick, I know we wanted to talk about Jesse and the Shielded Prepper. I know he's a new part of Ninja Nation. Maybe we could talk about that now, or do we could do the woo-woo? I'll let you decide, Patrick. Do you want to hear?
I think I'd like to do this. So one thing, because let's talk about Ninja Nation, right? So Ninja Nation, one of the things that we all did, I met a guy named Jesse when we were at Vancouver Resource Investment Conference. I believe we had a dinner with him, and Shielded Prepper was a pretty legit guy, right? And as I'm watching him, some of this stuff sticks out. So I just wanted to share him. That's something I do, Chris, all the time. I've shared your show. I've shared a lot of other shows, but I just wanted to share again, Shielded Prepper, and give him an opportunity, because he's one guy I've looked up to. I respect the way he thinks, and he's definitely got a love for the community. So I just want you guys to see him and follow him, and give him a like. So look at this, and I'm going to show you guys.
I bet you did look up to him. He's like 6'6".
Dude. Yeah,
he was,
and he's got a great beard, right? So I've been I asked some beard care tips too. Here's one.
These Americans, these 30 million Americans, are bracing for significant cuts of their monthly food assistance. And after nearly 3 years of federal government subsidies ending its pandemic era payments on March 1st, it all stops right now. Low-income families on supplemental nutrition assistance programs, or SNAP, are going to feel it the worst. They're going to feel it. Dina, this family, says that her and her husband, Ben, are both disabled and rely on fixed income to provide for their 2 young sons. After special benefit allotments go away, the Hardys' SNAP benefits will plummet. Listen to this, will plummet from $960 a month to $200 a month. That's a lot of food assistance. I would say that our family of 6 survives on maybe that plus or minus. So these families are eating the same as those of us that are working and having to put it out of our pockets. And I'm not putting this against those that receive it. It just goes to show you the lascivious spending that the government has, and they're taking it away from those that can't afford it, and they're spending it across the ocean. Billions are being given freely to prop up the pension funds in the Ukraine to stabilize their economy on the backs of us. And the Hardy family is having a 80% cut, 75% cut to their food benefits when Americans need it. And they're just one family of.
I mean, that's the kind of stuff that he shows. And I just wanted to kind of talk about that because when I saw him share that clip, it reminded me, I'll even use the ninja word, it harkened back to the time where I got to see you talk about Stacy and your family situation and how you take care of your elderly. And I remember showing that again. So this is the time where I guess I would want you to speak to my generation, right? Just guys who are a little younger, maybe have younger families, and they want to learn how to help their neighbors and help their kids prepare. Like, what wisdom do you have for people like us who are trying to prepare for these economic times? And how can we consider our parents, especially when we think they're able-bodied, but we don't know what their needs are going to be? As you're going through it, what have you learned to help prepare for your family and your loved ones?
Well, I'm not really going through it. I learned a lot from Dan, allegedly, when his girlfriend was dying and he was taking care of those bills and how much money it costs. I learned from people that have parents and they're, it's costly to keep them in the right kind of place. It's really expensive. I've done videos on it. And you got to think that ahead of time, because it's like trying to get in shape when you're 70 or 80. You're not ready and it's not going to happen. It's like dieting a week before you need to go to the beach. You need to prepare now and start thinking about it. If we think about things, the cards will kind of start stacking in your favor. So, if you'll start dwelling on them, meditating on things, God will give you the right ideas. He'll give you, kind of a structured way to see things. And it's like, okay, my parents are going to get old. I need to kind of start thinking about it. That doesn't mean I need to go buy a life insurance policy on them or something. I'm just saying, start putting things into place, and that'll kind of gear you towards everything we're talking about: hedging, investing, getting ready, being prepared, having food. All that goes together. Because, like I say all the time, you can't help anybody if you're the one that needs help.
Absolutely. That's a great way to wrap that up there, Chris. And just to share, this is the Shielded Prepper. That's how to follow the Shielded Prepper there, and this is how you can follow Chris and Stacy over a Financial Prepper. Obviously, we like the Prepper name around here, but Chris, we want to thank you for joining us.
Wait, you got to let Chris do the sign out so we can have a really not a bad day.
I will do that
because you want to have an awesome day.
All right, and be prepared and not scared. So thank you, Chris, again, so much. Dylan, Patrick, thank you so much. Check it out. Check out Chris on his channel with Stacy. Check out our channels too. Like and subscribe. We love you guys. We'll look for more stuff on silver, gold, crypto, and prepping on this channel and Chris's channel, and of course Jesse's channel too. So with all that said, stay prepared and don't be scared. We'll talk to you soon.
Later, guys.